A warm welcome to TV Africa News and thank you for always joining us. This is Africa Today. My name is Najma Luima, but first are the headlines. Museveni clears workers for mid-term access to NSSF savings. UPDF to retire 14 generals and over 600 officers today. South Sudanese Vice President Machar deposed by party rival leaders. And in sports, Uganda's Peruth Chemtai wins gold at Tokyo 2020 Olympics. A warm welcome once again. Now the news in detail. President Museveni has finally cleared workers to have mid-term access to their National Social Security Fund savings, despite being passed in February this year by the 10th Parliament. There has been a stalemate that led to delay in assenting to NSSF Amendment Bill 2020 by the President. We have more on this story.
Despite being passed in February this year by the 10th Parliament, there has been a stalemate that led to delay in assenting the National Social Security Fund Amendment Bill 2020 by the President. However, on Wednesday, the President directed the Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development, Betty Amongi, to make changes to the bill and return it for consent. Museveni agreed to mid-term access for workers to the maximum of 20% as had been proposed in the National Social Security Bill. If signed into law, it will allow contributors to the NSSF who have clocked 45 or have saved for at least 10 years will now have access to 20% of their savings with the NSSF. There was a stalemate caused by the difference in the payment figure as presented by the NSSF on one side and workers' representatives on the other side. Workers urged that would be paid up to 800 billion in total if savers who have clocked 45 or those who have saved up to 10 years are given 20% of their savings. President Museveni allayed any fears by the National Social Security Fund, noting that he was more concerned with destroying the viability of the fund. According to a statement from the State House, the commencement date will be set in the statutory instrument.
Moving on, the UPDF has announced that a total of 14 general officers and 604 senior and junior officers of the Ugandan Army will later today officially retire from active services of the force. The retirement ceremony of the generals will be held at State House in Entebbe, whereas the other retirees will be in their respective service headquarters, formations and units. Kachanchu has more.
In a statement released today, the Uganda People's Defence Forces spokesperson Brigadier Flavia Byekwaso said that the Ministry of Defence and the Uganda People's Defence Forces recognize their commitment, sacrifice, selflessness and dedication to offering security service to the country at a time where many shunned joining the liberation struggle in favor of maintaining the status quo. Whereas the army didn't reveal the names of the generals retiring today, TV Africa has separately learnt that among those retiring is Major General Pecos Kutesa and Major General Robert Rusoke. President Museveni, who is also the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, will preside over the retirement ceremony at State House Entebbe. The Uganda People's Defence Force conditions and terms of service provide that it's illegal to keep army officers in active service once they clock a certain age but are not promoted to the next rank.
Away from that, government has asked youths to use its skilled programs to address challenges that were brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. This has been revealed by the State Minister of Gender and Social Development, Honorable Sarah Mateke Nyirabashisi, ahead of the International Youth Day celebrations scheduled for 12th August this year. We have more.
Speaking to journalists at the Government Media Center in Kampala, the State Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Honorable Sarah Mateke Nyirabashisi, said government is aware of the challenges faced by the youths which came with COVID-19, but advised them to make use of government available programs such as Emyoga and also consider skilling to start afresh.
We surely feel for the youth, and the programs that we are putting aside is the skilling component. And the skilling component is going to be rolled over this financial year, especially where we have our institutions and where we have built our industrial hubs. I believe that this skilling will also help our youth. Thank you so much.
She also revealed that government has set aside 164 billion Ugandan shillings to help address problems faced by the youths in the country.
We have the Youth Livelihood Program, which has been running and it is still running. If you go to every district, right to the last sub-county, we have their money for the Youth Livelihood Program and the youth benefit from there. And from our budget this financial year, we have a budget of 164 billion, which is set aside for the youth.
The National Youth MP for Northern Uganda, Honorable Okot, promised to push the agenda for the youth on the floor of Parliament and also find appropriate mechanisms to tackle unemployment and other challenges faced by young people.
So ours for now is to ensure that as much as possible we push the agenda of the young people, at least in the floor of the House. So we'll continue to do that. I know we've just started, but the 5 years, a long time, and we'll do that with all that we have. Thank you.
This year's International Youth Day celebrations will be held scientifically at State House Entebbe under the theme Youth Innovation for Transformation of Food Systems and Sustainable Human Health on the 12th of August 2021. Nalgo Muyingo, Africa Today.
Let's take a very quick short break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, The Right to Know. Vice President Riek Machar, a pivotal figure in South Sudan's bloody road to independence and a subsequent civil war, was deposed following a 3-day gathering of senior Sudan People's Liberation Movement in opposition leaders in the country's far north, according to the party's military wing.
Speaking to journalists at the Government Media Center in Kampala, the State Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Honorable Sarah Mateke Nyirabashisi, said government is aware of the challenges faced by the youths which came with COVID-19, but advised them to make use of government available programs such as Emyoga and also consider skilling to start afresh.
The UN's humanitarian chief, Martin Griffiths, on Tuesday condemned dangerous accusations by Ethiopian government officials that aid workers were biased in favor of and even arming rebel forces in war-hit Tigray. Let's take a look.
The UN's humanitarian chief, Martin Griffiths, during a press conference at the end of a 6-day visit to Ethiopia, his first mission in his new role, said that blanket accusations of humanitarian aid workers need to stop in Ethiopia. Martin Griffiths also called for access to allow desperately needed aid into the northern region, where the UN says hundreds of thousands of people are suffering from famine. At least a dozen aid workers have been killed since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed sent troops into Tigray in November to topple its ruling party, the Tigray People's Liberation Front. They include 1 Spanish and 2 Ethiopian staff with Doctors Without Borders, who was slain in June, prompting the medical charity, known by the French acronym MSF, to suspend operations in some parts of the region. Last month, a senior government official, Redwan Hussein, accused some aid groups of arming other side, meaning the TPLF, but gave no details.
If it wasn't for the military stationed in front of Tunisia's parliament and near the now vacant Prime Minister's office, one wouldn't be able to tell this is a country going through another critical patch in its political history. We have more on this report.
Since President Kais Saied granted himself full powers on July 25th, his opponents cried foul, denouncing the move as a coup. President has defended his moves as necessary to save the country from its current predicaments and to fight corruption. 10 years ago, Abdel Nakour, a lawyer, became one of the symbols of Tunisia's Jasmine Revolution, which sparked a popular movement that changed the face of much of the Arab world. The night Tunisia's former president Zayn El Abidine Ben Ali fled the country, Nakour was the first to defy the military-imposed curfew and erupt into celebration. While Saïdi's seizure of power has been backed by ordinary Tunisians, political analyst Taha Abdel Salam says the president's solution to curing the political malaise plaguing the country misses a point.
Morocco on Tuesday increased its curfew hours and stepped up travel restrictions to 3 major cities in a bid to slow surging coronavirus cases. The authorities have also restricted travel to and from the cities of Agadir, Casablanca and Marrakesh. We have more.
A nationwide curfew in place since December is now in force from 9 to 5 a.m. according to government statement. It was previously in force from 11 to 4:30 a.m. Those who have had 2 vaccinations are exempt from the nighttime curfew and travel restrictions. Gatherings of more than 25 people are also prohibited and hotels are limited to 75% of capacity. Existing restrictions remain, including a ban on funerals and wedding parties, as well as a 50% capacity limit on public transport, in cafes and in restaurants. More than 14 million people have received the first dose of the vaccine, many with the Sinopharm jab. In May, Morocco gradually relaxed some restrictions and resumed international flights in June.
Let's once again take a very quick short break. We will be right back. In our business news today, people who fled their homes and lost their livelihoods due to the ongoing conflict in the northeast of Nigeria struggle to put food on the table because of soaring inflation. The inflation rate reached a 4-year record high of 18% in March this year, according to the National Bureau of Statistics.
People displaced by the conflict in the northeast of Nigeria are among the most vulnerable and are disproportionately affected by price fluctuations. Over a decade of armed conflict has left more than 2 million people displaced in the northeast of Nigeria, making it one of the world's most complex humanitarian emergencies. As people fled their homes, they also lost their livelihoods, and many of them struggle to meet their essential needs. According to official statistics, 40% of Nigeria's population, or almost 83 million people, live below the country's poverty line of 137,430 naira per year. The International Committee of the Red Cross provides microeconomic grants to vulnerable groups of people who lost their income due to the ongoing armed conflict to enable people start small businesses. However, the steep inflation of the past year has hit them hard, and an increasing number of people are struggling to keep their businesses afloat.
In our health news today, Burundi is preparing to accept its first COVID-19 vaccines after becoming one of the last countries in the world to embrace them. Health Minister Thadi Ndikumana announced the government reversal last week and said the vaccines will arrive with the support of the World Bank.
Burundi continues to carry out mass screenings for the virus. Health Minister Thadi Ndikumana saying he expected to control the latest uptick in infections by mid-August. He has said the government will store the incoming vaccine doses but will not take responsibility for any side effects. Burundi's announcement on July 29th came the same day that neighboring Tanzania launched its vaccination campaign, retreating from former President John Magufuli's denial of the pandemic. He died in March, and the presidency went to his deputy Samia Suluhu Hassan, who has since reversed course on COVID-19 in one of Africa's most populous countries. Burundi's late President Pierre Nkurunziza, who died last year, also was criticized for taking the pandemic lightly. The administration of his successor, President Evariste Ndayishimiye, earlier this year said that the country of more than 11 million people did yet need COVID-19 vaccines. Burundi's decision leaves Eritrea, one of the world's most closed-off nations, as the only African country that hasn't accepted the vaccines.
In our sports news today, Uganda's middle distance runner Peruth Chamtai won the country its first gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics. The fast-paced athlete crossed the finish line first in the women's 3,000 meter steeplechase race, posting a time of 9 minutes 1 second 45 microseconds, which is a national record over that distance. Katende has more.
Peruth Chamtai of Uganda made her move on the last lap and pulled away for the win in the women's 3,000 meter steeplechase final in Tokyo Games. Chamtai set a new national record with her time of 9 minutes 1.45 seconds. American Courtney Frankies took off with around 2.5 laps to go. She was chased down by Chamtai but held on down the stretch for silver. Heaven Kieng of Kenya was third. Emma Coburn of the United States was disqualified for what was listed as a lane infringement after finishing behind the field. The 22-year-old Chamtai finished 5th at the 2019 World Championship in Doha. This is the third medal for Uganda at the Games in Tokyo, after Joshua Cheptegei won silver and Jacob Kiplimo winning bronze in the 10,000 meters. By and large, this is Uganda's first ever Olympic gold medal among the females and the third overall since 1956. John Akiboa won gold in 400 meters hurdles race during the 1972 Games, which was followed by marathoner Stephen Kiprotich in 2012. Katende Chabasinga reporting for TV Africa.
Now, before we end our news bulletin today, let's take a recap of our top stories. Museveni clears workers for mid-term access to NSSF savings. UPDF to retire 14 generals and over 600 officers today. South Sudanese Vice President Machar deposed by party rival leaders. And in sports, Uganda's Peruth Chamtai wins gold at Tokyo 2020 Olympics. That was the news. Thank you for always keeping it TV Africa. Please do stay tuned. More programming coming your way. Also, we congratulate you, Chamtai, over this victory.
This is Africa, and that was the news.